Today is December 7th, 2023. We are interviewing Fran Greenberg. My name is Esther Binder. Ms. Greenberg is in Columbus, Ohio. I am in Henderson, Nevada, in the United States, and the language will be English. Thank you for speaking with us today. What is your name, and can you please spell it?
Frances Greenberg, Frances Greenberg. I go by Fran.
And what was your name at birth, and can you spell that?
Fanny, Fanny Silberstein, Silberstein.
Where were you born?
Paris, France.
And when?
July 10th, 1937.
And how old are you today?
I am 86.
Did you have a large family in France that had been there many generations?
Not that much, no.
What can you tell us about your family?
Well, my father came from Russia with his sister to Paris, and my mom went to Paris on her way to Brazil. She was going to Brazil to be with her sister. Her sister they were able to get out of Poland. But my mother had a ticket to go to Brazil, and then she wrote to her sister and said, I'm not coming. I just found the man I want to marry. So she stayed in Paris, France.
What was your father's name?
Simon, Simon. But French is Simon, but it's Simon, Simon.
And do you know where he was born?
He was born in Russia. I can't remember, in Russia. I can't remember right now.
Do you know when or why he left Russia?
I do not know.
What work did he do before the war?
He was a shoemaker.
And what was your mother's name?
Jeanne, they pronounce it. Jeanne, Jeanne. Jeanne.
Do you know how your parents met?
I don't. I just found that out that she stopped in Paris and found my father. No.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I have one sister.
Older or younger?
A year and a half older.
I know you were very young, but what do you know about what was happening to your family in 1939 into 1940?
All I know is that they were attacking us because we were Jews. That's all I knew. They wanted to get rid of the Jews. That's all I knew.
What are some of your earliest memories?
My earliest memories, I was like 4.5. My parents were living in a 2-room apartment. We slept in the same bedroom, all of us. And then in the middle of the night, there was a knock on the door, bang on the door, and my father went to open the door, and it was the French Gestapo. They were working for the Nazis. It was not the Nazis, it was the French Gestapo. And they told my father he had to go with them. And he says, why? He says, we need the workforce, we need some help, and you have to go with us right now, in the middle of the night. So they took him out to the truck, and when I looked out the window, I could see the truck that had picked up all the men, all the Jewish men in that community. And I never saw my father again.
Do you know what happened to him?
Yes, he was arrested, and he was sent to Camp Drancy, which is a prison camp. And he was there just maybe 6 months. He was 19, it was 1942. He was arrested April, June 1942. And from Camp Drancy, he was sent to Auschwitz, and he was put to death July 8th, 1942. They even have the time, 6:10, that he died.
How did you find this information?
Well, I've been looking for my father, my sister and I, for a long, long time, hoping he survived. And finally, a few years ago, I went to the Red Cross. And now with all the, they can do so much more today to find, and I finally have his death certificate. Is it when he, all in it's everything, his name, where he was born, and he when he died. It's his whole history. It was hard to see that.
Let's get back to your life in 1942. After your father was taken, what changes were made to adapt? How did you folks survive after that?
Well, my mother, was a dressmaker, and she was working for a dress shop. But after my father was taken, she had to find a place for us to go. So she found a daycare for my sister and I to go and stay there during the day. And she would pick up every day at 4 o'clock. The daycare was run by the nuns, and the nuns were wonderful. I don't recall how long we were there, but I know that it wasn't a bad place because the nuns took care of us. And every day at 4 o'clock, they would put us in the dining room and give us a snack every day at 4 o'clock. And then one day at 4 o'clock, the Nazis broke in and knocked the nuns over, and they said, "What do you want?" He says, "Now we're coming for the women. You have all these Jewish women here. We're coming for the women." He said, "But they're here with their children." He says, "We're coming for the women. Tell them to put their children down. We'll grab them. We only want the women." So it was my sister and I were sitting there. My mother had been next to me, and I didn't see if she disappeared or not. All I knew is that I could hear the children crying, "Mama, mama, mama, mama," crying. It was a terrible ordeal to watch how these Nazis were dragging these women out of there. And my sister and I were in shock. Well, after they all left, this little boy came over to me and he said, "I showed your mom where to hide." I'm little and she was little. There was a big fireplace and there was firewood next to it. My mom was hiding in the firewood with the wood, and she's the only one that survived.
What happened next?
Well, that's when my mom decided that she was going to keep us at home, that she couldn't afford to put us anyplace. So she had many friends. She had a woman called Bert and Adele, and she had many friends, and they all were seamstress. So they would come every evening and sew. So the children, we didn't have to go anywhere. We were there with my mother. So that's how she earned a living. And my mother would go every day out trying to find food. It was very difficult. Sometimes she would bring the milk home, and it was bad. We couldn't even drink it. So it was very difficult. Then one day we're out shopping for food, and we could hear the sirens blowing. So my mother grabbed us and pushed us down into the metro system. So we went down to the metro. All I remember is sleeping on the floor in the metro. I don't remember how long, but it wasn't that long. But I remember, the one thing I remember is that people were passing out gas masks, whatever they are. The only thing I remember but the mask is the rubber, the smell of the rubber. So we were there, and then finally when the sirens stopped blowing, we went home. Unfortunately, when we got home, we lived on 154 Rue Berkampf. When we got home, we found that the Nazis had been in our apartment. So thank God we weren't there. But what they did, they went in the apartment, they took everything we owned, everything, the furniture, the clothes. All we had was the clothes on our back and my mother's purse on her shoulder. And that's the only time I saw my mother start to cry. And I said, Mama, what are we going to do? So she held us. She held us, and she says, we'll be okay. We'll be okay. Don't worry. Her best friend, Bert, had a little boy called Armand, a little younger than me. They lived on the other side of Paris. It's called Rue de Ris. And she lived there in a little courtyard. So we walked over there to where she lives. We walked down the hallway, and the concierge stopped us. She said, what are you doing here? I said, we came to visit Bert. She says, well, Bert is going to be leaving because the Nazis were here and they're coming back. So Bert you can't stay here because if I hide you, they'll arrest me also. So right across the concierge was a 3-story apartment building. And the apartment building had like 3 to 4 apartments on each floor. They were all empty. Everybody was gone. They had taken everything. Bert was the only one that lived across the courtyard who still was in her little apartment. So we begged, and we said, we have these little children, we have no place to go. The concierge says, I will let you stay for a few days, but just a few days. But you have to promise that you will stay on the top floor, on the 3rd floor, in the last apartment. And if you hear anything, hide in the big closet. So that's what we did. We hid in the big closet, and during the night, we would sneak over to Bert to have some food. But I have to tell you, my mom had to wear the Jewish star, the yellow star. And even though the Nazis weren't around, a lot of the French people would spit at us because they blamed the Jews for the war. Because I was still young, I didn't have to wear the cross, the star. So I did some of the shopping. Now, next to Bert's apartment was a barber shop, a grocery store. They were nice Gentiles, and they knew we were there hiding. And they promised they would warn us if anything happened. So we went on. After a while, we went out to play as children. And the barber shop gave us a ball. So we thought, oh, this is wonderful. I think, we'll be okay. And then one day, I'm upstairs with Bert and my mother, and we could hear the Germans, the Nazis, marching down the street. And my mother looked out the window, and I could see she was crying. She says, well, it looks like this is it. This is it. We're going to go. The barber comes out of his barber shop and says to the children, come to Papa. And he grabs them and tells the Nazis that they're his children. When my mother saw that he took the children in, she was relieved. But she said, there's no way we're going to survive. So she put me in the closet. My mother, they had brought me pillows. So my mother took the pillow out of the pillowcase and put me inside the pillowcase like I was a pillow. And she said, Fanny, do not speak one word, do not cough, nothing. Just sit really, really still. So I did. So the Nazis came in, and the concierge said, all the Jews are gone. They're gone. There's nobody here. They're all gone. And they went over and they saw Bert's place, and they said, well, she left everything. They said, well, we still have to check the apartment buildings, all the apartments. So they start going from one floor to another, every apartment, checking every apartment. You could hear them laughing and yelling and talking, and they got to the top floor. And the concierge got very nervous. And all I know is my mom told me that she brought a tray of food. And they sat on the top floor and they drank and they ate. And she talked to them. And somehow they walked back down, forgot to check the last apartment. That's why I'm still here.
Was your sister with you at this time, or was she?
Yeah, by the way, my sister's name was Giselle. They didn't ask me. Giselle. My sister's name was Giselle.
Was she playing with the children downstairs, or was she with you?
No, she was downstairs. Giselle and our mom were outside. I was the only one upstairs with Barrett and my mom.
What happened then next?
Well, then they realized that the concierge says, now, they'll be back. So they said, well, so my mom, I don't know who, but I believe the highest, the Hebrew society, the Jewish Hebrew, the highest. the woman came to the apartment, and she said at night, and she said, you have to do something. You cannot hide your children. You will all be taken. What we're doing, we're planning on taking your 2 little girls and putting them out in the country in a foster home with non-Jews. And our mom will go to another foster home with non-Jews. And Bert and my mom, you're going to have to go in. They told them to go into the forest out in the country and hide. And my mom and Bert lived in the country, in the woods with even Russians. There was a movie made of that, and she lived like that. My sister and I, a lady from the highest, put us on a train, and she took us to, I don't remember the name of the city, but it was way out of Paris because we were on the train all day. So the first foster family, the name was Lance, Lance, Lance. And they had 3 children, and I know they were getting paid. Now, I still don't understand who paid them, but they were getting paid. So they told us, they said they would accept us and take care of us. But you understand, there was very little food. Any extra food they gave to their children. And there are days when my sister and I would have a piece of bread and butter in the morning and maybe a drink of milk at night, and that's it, all day. And God love my sister. She would take the bread and cut it in half and give me the bigger piece. She always worried that, because I was a sickly child at that time. I was getting sick. So things were not good. And so somehow my mother corresponded and realized that we were not being fed correctly. So the lady from the highest comes and takes us to another foster care. Their name was Renaud. And it was the same situation. We lived in the house. The children went to school. We had very, very little food. And it was a terrible place to live. They were getting paid, but not to feed us. So when their children went to school, the back of the house was like a little park. So my sister and I, during the day, would go play in the park. And this happened every day. But one day, we're in the park, and we can hear the sirens blowing. And as the sirens are blowing, the sky is lighting up. The bombs are dropping, and the sirens are blowing. So we're running. Now, the neighbor next door had a basement. I don't know if it's a bomb shelter, but it was a big basement. So they told us we have to crawl into the basement. So we ran into the basement. Now, it wasn't just my sister and I. It was the family and people on the block. Everyone was in the basement. It was filled with people. And I don't remember how long we were there, how we ate, how we used the bathroom. All I know is that I could hear the bombs dropping. And I remember going into the corner and screaming every time I heard the bomb. And my sister would hold on to me. My sister was so hard. She tried so hard to take care of me and protect me. But it was a very, very frightening time. And finally, after a few days, we all came out from the basement, and we could see the destruction, how many bombs had dropped on houses, and it was a disaster. And my sister and I, we couldn't understand what, these people, I don't know who was bombing us, but these people were saying we're not Jewish. But somehow they were still involved. So finally, the lady from the highest comes, and she sees that I'm getting very, very sick. And one day I had to go to the doctor, and he couldn't take care of me. I had an infection. He couldn't take care of me. And finally, he said to them that I have to leave and I need to go someplace to be helped because I have tuberculosis. So my sister and I were taken to, it was like a castle, a big chateau. Some of the chateaus in France were turned into orphanages. And this was one of them. And it was run by Jewish people, and it was very nice. But my sister was able to go to school there, but I was too sick. So finally, the lady from the highest says, you can't stay here. You're too sick. we're taking you to a sanitarium. Now, the sanitarium was, excuse me, also around the same area. So I'm crying. I said, no, I don't want to leave my sister. I have to be with my sister. Your sister will be in a convent right on the other side of the sanitarium. It's all Catholic. You won't have to worry. Your sister will be there. So I went to the sanitarium. In the sanitarium, I learned Catholicism. The nuns were wonderful, and they told me that my name from now on will be Françoise, not Fanny Silberstein. My mother had her brother. My father's sister had a son. His last name was Plot, Jacques Plot, P-L-O-T, and he was the one that a very wealthy man, even during the war. Anyway, so I became Françoise Plot. And it was never written down, but I knew that if anybody asked me my name, I was now Françoise. And I learned, they said, if you see anybody walking around looking for Jewish children, remember, you're Françoise. And the nuns were wonderful. I became very, very involved in Catholicism, and it was something that I needed. It was something I can hold on to. And I just, and I felt, I don't want to be a Jew. I mean, all I knew, being Jewish, they want to kill us. So I was happy to be Catholic. So I don't recall how long we were in the sanitarium. Finally, I came out of the sanitarium, but before I came out of the sanitarium, I was there, and all of a sudden the bells were ringing and people were jumping around up and down. It was then 1945, I believe, 44, 45. And everybody was so happy. And I said, what's going on? The war is over. The war is over. And the nuns are dancing. I mean, it was beautiful. So I said, oh, wonderful. I'll see my sister every day. My dad, my mom will be back to the way we used to live. And thank God, we'll be together again. My mom came to get me. And we went to Paris. Now, you understand, the apartment that we had lived in was still there for us, empty. I have no idea why, but it was empty. So we were able to move in. And the Jewish organization, brought us furniture and clothing, and they gave us things so we could at least, have a place to live. So we did live there for a little while, and, things were a little bit better. My mom took care of us, and we had a little bit more food. It wasn't great, but it was better, and I was getting better. And then my uncle in Canonsburg had a friend called his name was Bill. His name was Bill. They called him Velvu Cats. And Velvu Cat says, I am going to Paris. The war is over, I'm going to Paris. And my uncle, Sam Toder, says, would you look up my sister and her two little girls? So when he came to Paris, he found us. Velvu Cats found us. And I have a picture of him. He knocked on the door, and it was so wonderful to see him. And he said, are you eating okay? And we said, whatever we can find, we eat. He comes to visit a week later, and he fills our closet, all kind of foods. He fills the whole closet, canned foods. He comes back, he says, how did you like the food? I said, how do we open a can? He says, you don't have a can opener? What's a can opener? So he opened the can, and I can still remember the first taste I had of fruit cocktail. So we were able to eat the food. What happened there is that I guess my mom was not well. She was still very sick, and I didn't realize when she left the force, she was sick, malnutrition, and finally she was too sick to take care of my sister and I. So she said, you're going to have to go back to foster care because I have to go to the hospital. Now, no one seemed to offer to take care of my sister and I, the family we had, no. We went back to foster care, and the foster care was terrible. You understand? The war was over, but our life was still terrible. We never had enough food. My sister and I counted from the time my father was taken until we came to America, we lived in 10 different establishments, 10. And so we went from one place to another because the first place was so bad, the lady came and took us to another place. The only one that we stayed with, of foster parents, was a lovely, lovely couple. And in my prayers, I thank God. They were the only one that really loved us and took care of us. And they were wonderful, and we were able to eat.
What was their name?
Their name, I don't recall. I don't know why. Their name, I do not recall. But they were very special. Well, the Jewish organization decided that we now have to become Jews again. And these people were not Jewish. And we did not want to leave, but they put us in a Jewish orphanage, big Jewish orphanage. And when we left, the lady cried. She didn't want to, and you know what? I could live there. I mean, when I lived there, things were so wonderful for a short time. So we went to the Jewish orphanage, and I must tell you that I was an angry child because the Jewish orphanage was terrible. I was an angry child. So the lady from the highest comes to get us, to take us to Paris. I'm taking you to see your mom. We were so excited. We're finally going to see our mother. It was wonderful. She took us to the hospital in Paris. We walk in the room. My mother is laying in bed, candy under her pillow. And she was kissing us and hugging us. And we were so happy to see her. I mean, it was so wonderful. I mean, we laid right beside her. And then I looked at my sister in the other room, and she was crying. I said, "Why are you crying?" She says, "If you knew what I knew, you would cry too." My mom was dying, and no one told me, and she didn't want to tell me. And this last time I saw my mom. From what I know from my mom's friends, they got together and they performed the burial and the funeral. They did, but my sister and I were never part of it, never part of it. So after that, I did go back to another sanitarium because I was still sick. And my sister, I believed, lived with Jacques Plot. My cousin Jacques Plot had 5 children, and he had a big house in Neuilly-Plaisance. He had a home in Paris. He was, like I said, he was in the leather business, and he was very wealthy. So my sister was able to stay with them for a while till I came out of the sanitarium. I finally come out of the sanitarium, and Jacques Plot drives all night long. I remember he drove all night long to get me back to Neuilly-Plaisance, outside of Paris. He said, "You have to sing to me because I'm falling asleep." Anyways, once we got to Neuilly-Plaisance, the home was beautiful. The children were there, and we were so happy to be together. The children we have known since they were little, and we had good food. We finally had a wonderful place to live. And they had a maid and a butler, and I mean, it was amazing. He was able to save his business. Meanwhile, in the wintertime, they go back to Paris. They go back to Paris to their apartment. And Jacques says, "We have no room for the 2 of you. We have no room. So you will be staying with the maid and the butler and the guard. You'll be staying in their place. We'll pay them, but you'll stay with them until we come back next summer." So we packed our bags and went to live with this older couple. We called them Meme and Pepe. They were older, and they had no patience for us at all. My sister and I used to hold hands, and I remember crying in the middle of the night and nightmares. Every night I had nightmares. And they were upset. I woke them up. So I can still remember. They gave me something called Fedo Bebe. It's like sleeping medicine. So I could sleep. And we still went to school there, but everything was Catholic. We did not have anything as far. I do have to tell you that when my mother was sick in bed, I would say, Mama, I'm going to go with Nicole to the church. She says, "Go to the church. God is everywhere. Go to the church. God is everywhere. Pray that your father comes back, and someday you'll be able to be a Jew. That stayed with me a long time, but I still had a lot of bad feelings about being Jewish. So I have to tell you that we live with Mimi and Pepe. My mother, before she died, she wanted us to go to Brazil, to her sister. Her sister was one of these loving, wonderful, wonderful people, and we knew, and she knew, we would have a lot of love. She said the only other one would be her brother in Canonsburg, PA, but she knew that her sister-in-law would not want to take care of us. It would not be a good place. So she wanted us to go to Brazil. And we tried and tried. For some reason, they would not let us come to Brazil. I don't know why. But I did have scars on my lungs. Maybe that's why. We do not know. But Jacques finally comes and he says, I have your tickets, and I have a copy of that, and you're going to Cannes and take a boat to America. So Jacques drove us to Cannes and dropped us off in front of the ship, and he says, you can run around Cannes, and then a little boat will come and take you to the big ship. I have a picture of us with the Hayes took a picture of us in front of the ship there. So the three of us, there was a little girl called, I forget her name anyways, so there's two of us going on the ship. It's called the Sobieski. Now, the Sobieski was a Polish ship. They only spoke Polish. So here my sister and I was 11, she was 12 and a half, going on this big ship, two little girls alone. We had no idea what was in front of us. We had no idea where we were going or what was going to happen. All we spoke was French. My sister spoke Yiddish. So we were on the ship, I would say, with at least 10 days. And halfway through, we were very, very sick, very sick. My mother, the Germans, Nazis had taken everything we owned. The only thing my mother had was a string of pearls. And I have a picture of her on a wedding day with a string of pearls. Jacques put the pearls in the suitcase. Well, when we got off the ship, the pearls were gone. The only thing we had from my mother was the pearls, and they were gone. So when my aunt came to get us at the ship, she wanted the pearls. Well, we don't have any pearls. So anyways, we did have a wonderful cousin in New York that she was the daughter of the lady in Brazil, my aunt Brazil, but she was young. She couldn't take care of us. So my aunt Sarah and her husband, they decided they're going to take care of us. So we took a train to Canonsburg, Pennsylvania. My Uncle Sam was a very nice man. He was a nebbish, very nice man. She did not want to take care of two little girls. And like my son says, you were two broken little girls, but they just didn't want us in the house. They didn't want to have to take care of us. And they didn't understand what we had been through. They did not understand what we had been through. So we were living there, and that's when my uncle changed my name to Francis and changed my sister's name to Gloria. So we would be more, Americanized. So we were in Canonsburg, and we went to school there. We started school in the first grade, and the way we learned English is little cards. A picture of a boat, a picture of a table. Underneath it was written. So my sister and I learned English very quickly. Now, I don't remember how long I was with the Toters in Canonsburg, but it was not a good place. We knew we were not welcomed. Well, what happened is one day, my sister and I are sitting on the top of the steps, and there's a couple, their name is Moskowitz, Geraldine and Jerry Moskowitz, looking to adopt a child. They really want to adopt a baby. They have no children. So my aunt comes up, she says, you're going to go with them, and you're going to have another mom and dad, and you're going to be done. Finally, they told me my mom had died, but I just didn't believe it. They said, yeah, you're going to go with them, and they're going to take care of you, and separated me from my sister. I can still remember my sister. I thought about this morning. My sister, wherever she went, I was like her shadow. And I remember my aunt said something to me. She says, what if something happens to your sister and she dies? I said, then I'll kill myself. That's what I said to her. I just couldn't imagine being without my sister. So this family took me out of a way, took me to their home. I cried every night for my mother or my sister. I cried every night. It was a terrible place to be, terrible place to be. And I knew that there was no love. They were only in their late 20s. So one day they came over, they said, listen, we're taking you back to Kennisburg, to your aunt and uncle. So unfortunately, they took me back. And my aunt and my uncle, my aunt was so upset. What did you do that they sent you back? What did you do? I said, I cried. They said, well, don't go outside. Kennisburg is a small town. Everyone in Kennisburg knew about the two French girls. So she didn't want anyone to know that they brought me back. So I have to tell you that my sister had gone to a place called Wheeling, West Virginia. My aunt had a daughter, Minna, and a son, Izzy, and a young called Saul Toder. Saul Toder was still living in the home. He was a teenager, and he was great. Her daughter, Minna, lived in Wheeling and had 3 little girls. So my aunt and uncle took my sister to Wheeling to help the daughter take care of her children. So my sister became the nanny, the cleaner. She was the maid. She was the maid there. It was not a good place. So finally, they said, we're going to Wheeling, and we're going to see your sister. I was so thrilled. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. We went to Wheeling, and I finally saw my sister. The home was like a 2-family. They lived on the first floor, and a family called the Ginsberg lived on the second floor. So they said, we're going to go home, but you're going to be sleeping at the Ginsbergs. So already they were planning for the Ginsbergs to take care of me. So I lived with the Ginsberg, and you know what? She was okay. He was not a nice person. No, Harry Ginsberg was not a nice person. But you know what? I had a place to sleep, food on the table. I was going to school, and I said, what else can I ask for? And I had my sister. So what happened was that my sister decided to go to New York to visit Tanya, my aunt from Brazil's daughter. And she went to New York, and Tanya had a little baby girl, and my sister went there. And you understand, there was another cousin. They were all related. And my sister calls me, and she said, Tanya said that I don't have to go back to Wheeling after she heard what a terrible time I had with Minna. I'm not coming back. And here I am stuck with the Ginsbergs. I don't want to be with them. They did adopt me, but it was a terrible situation. Terrible situation. It was not, what they were looking for is a baby. And they did get a baby girl. So I again became the nanny taking care of the baby. But I enjoyed taking care of the baby. It was okay. But Harry and Sophie moved to Pittsburgh. And when they moved to Pittsburgh, we moved to Squirrel Hill. And Squirrel Hill is a Jewish place, a lot of Jews. But I have to tell you that all those years that I was living in Wheeling and Kennisburg, I was still going to the church. I was still going to the Catholic Church because that's all I knew. And then one day, a student says, why don't you come over to the synagogue with me and see what it's like? And I went, this is in Wheeling. I walked in the synagogue, and Rabbi Wagner, he says, who are you? I told him who I am. And I said, how do you pray here? The kids are running around. I said, you don't have organ. You don't cross yourself. You don't even get on your knees. He says, where did you come from? So you understand, there was no one to help us, to help us get through what we had gone through. And no one really cared. That was the problem. So meanwhile, I went back to Pittsburgh. And once I was in Pittsburgh, the Ginsberg, they took care of their little girl, and I was going to school called Taylor Alderdice, 75% Jews. And so I met this amazing young man called Daniel Greenberg. He was senior. I would think I was a freshman. And you understand, I went to school and kept going to school summer and winter to catch up because I was way behind in school. And Daniel Greenberg helped me. He was such a wonderful man, Then he went to college, and he still would take me out and, as a friend. And then one day he took me home and he told me that he loved me, he wanted to marry me. And I looked at him, I said, I met him when I was 16, this I was 17. And he said, I'm gonna be graduating, and after I graduate, we're gonna get married. So to make a long story short, when he graduated, he ended up going to, he was going to, in the service, he was inducted in the service. He comes home, within 2 weeks, we planned a wedding, and we were married, and my sister met her husband in Pittsburgh, thank God, and my life changed. My husband, my sister saved me, my mother saved me, but Dan showed me what life should be like, to be loved and to be cared for. He was the most amazing, amazing person. I was lucky to find him. And so we lived and we got together.
I'm going to stop you before you get much further because I have some questions about some of the time period that you already talked about. I want to go back just to flesh out a little bit more. When you knew you were coming to the United States, what were your expectations? What were your first impressions when you got here?
My first impressions is that we were going to be able to eat and see family. We were told we're going to an uncle, an aunt, and uncle in Kazantania. We thought, but you understand, the whole time on the ship, we couldn't speak anything. My sister knew Yiddish, and they saw, they were, but I can still remember when we got to the port and we saw the Statue of Liberty. Everybody was jumping up and down and laughing and crying. And my sister and I said, why are you so happy? Now you're in America. You'll never have to worry again about being Jewish. You'll be safe. Well, we're not safe, but that's what we were told. You'll be safe. You'll never have to worry about it again. And that's something we held on to. But like I said, it took my life during the Holocaust was terrible, and even coming to this country was very difficult until I met my husband and my husband.
We'll get back to that in just a minute. When you came here, did anybody ask you about what you went through during the war?
No.
How much education were you able to get?
How what?
How much education? You said you were working to catch up.
I started school when I was 11. I graduated at 17 and a half. I kept going and going till I could catch up to my class. Mm-hmm.
When you got here to the United States, what anti-foreign or anti-Semitic incidents did you experience or witness in this country?
At that time, I don't remember going through that. I don't remember having that problem at that time. And as you understand, at that time, I didn't even consider myself a Jew anymore. My sister and I didn't want to be Jews anymore. So it was very difficult because my aunt and uncle were Orthodox. And it was very difficult when I went to the store and I told her I wanted some jambon, ham. So that was a big problem. But like I said, they did not understand or wanted to understand. We needed help, and there was no help. And how we made it. But still, like I said, my husband was such a special person. He used to say, I wish I could have been there when you were there so I could have taken care of you. He was a very special man. And his family, a nice family. And my sister, had a nice family. My husband, passed away 6 years ago. But he left me four wonderful, wonderful children, 8 grandchildren. My sister has 3 children and 3 grandchildren. So we have come a long, long way. And I have to say that we feel very privileged that we're able to do this. Now, my sister was not able to speak. It was too difficult for her. She tried. But you understand, when I went to Taylor Arderdice, it was a school of a lot of wealthy kids, and I wanted to fit in. I never told them what I went through. They would say, "Where are you from?" I said, "From Paris." "Oh my God, from Paris, how lucky. Did you go to Pigalle? Did you, oh yes, everything was wonderful." They never knew what I really went through. A few years after I've been in Columbus, years ago, my story came out. And they called me, my friends, "Fran, we never knew you, did we?" "No, you never knew me." But that's what I wanted. I didn't want to be looked like that poor little orphan girl.
What work did you do as an adult in this country?
Well, what did I do as an adult after I married my husband? My husband was in the service. Unfortunately, my husband ended up in Korea after we were married 2 months. My sister and her husband ended up in Hawaii. That's where he was stationed. So I did go to Hawaii to be with my sister. My oldest son, Stephen, was born there. And then we came home. My husband, he'd have different jobs, but then he was transferred to Columbus, Ohio. We've been here now, I think, 62 years. And so we raised our family here. We were able to live in a beautiful, beautiful Jewish community. And little by little, we were trying to become, my husband was raised Orthodox, but he didn't do much of anything. But now that we had children, he says we have to try harder. We have to try harder. So we became, my oldest son, Stephen, became observant. And little by little, he told me he wouldn't eat our food anymore, so I had to keep kosher. So I had to really change my whole life. But I realized that even though it wasn't with me, I did it for my family and my children. I did it for them. And when my mom told me, "You'll be able to be a Jew again," I feel an obligation, not only for my parents, the 6 million Jews, 11 million people died during the Second World War. I feel the obligation to talk. And you know what? Every time I speak at a school or church or wherever I go, the children come up to me and hug me and say, "We are your witnesses. We will never forget you." It's hard to do it, but it's something that I feel I have to do. Anyways, we do have 3 wonderful boys, Stephen, Mark, and Andy. And Stephen is an Orthodox rabbi. Amazing. Mark is an attorney, and he prosecuted the skinheads and the drug cartel. My other son he also lives in California, and he's wonderful. And then after 3 boys, I always wanted a daughter. Couldn't have any more children, but I never experienced the love you have a mother and a daughter. I never had that. So we decided to adopt a little girl. It took a few years. And finally, one day they called us and they said, "We have a little 4-year-old little girl, and she's coming tomorrow." So I do have a daughter, Carrie Greenberg Ramsey. So we have 4 amazing children. So, all I can tell you is that God blessed me. He did, because I've lived, what's going on right now, very difficult for me. Very difficult for me. I feel like I'm going back to the hatred and what I went through. I've lived a long life. I worry about my children, my grandchildren. What's going to happen to them? I never want them to experience what I went through. But I just hope, I pray to God, and like I say, I lost my parents, I lost my home, I lost my childhood, I almost lost my health. But you know what? I didn't lose my faith. I am still a very proud Jew.
Would you please tell us about your experience at the U.S. House of Representatives?
The House of Representatives, that was amazing. Because I've done so much of the speaking in Columbus, Ohio, and there's not too many Holocaust survivors in Columbus who will speak. I belong to an organization where we help them. We help a lot of them are from Russia and they need help. So this organization, most of them, they come, but they speak their own language. There's very few. There were a Mr. Ebner that could speak. He's passed away. And there was another, so there was no one that spoke. So I felt that an obligation to talk about it. At the beginning, it was very, very hard. But I felt that I had to do this. So I've been speaking for like 18 years. And I've been doing it for a long time. So I got a call from the Jewish Federation, Jewish Family Service, that Senator Brown is looking for a Holocaust survivor in Ohio to go to Washington, D.C. and be in the House representative and meet the French president and see the French president. So it was an honor. It was an honor. And my son at the time was in New York. He says, "Mom, I'm going to accompany you. This time you're the queen. I'm coming to help you." So you know what? I sat in the House representative and I looked at the sky and I said, "Mom and Dad, can you believe I'm here? Can you believe I'm here?" It's just a miracle. So like I said, I thank God. I thank God that I was able to get through it.
How do you think your childhood experiences impacted your life and the choices you made?
Well, I think it has. I think I've learned to appreciate everything I have. The only thing my children will tell you is that when they were growing up, I feared for them. I wouldn't let them sleep at other people's houses. And my mom used to tell me, if you go to the movie, sit at the back of the movie in case there's a fire. I wouldn't let my kids do anything that was dangerous, because I was so frightened something would happen to my children. And they talk about it. They laugh about it now. But at that time, I just held on to them because they were my life. I couldn't imagine losing any of my children. So it did make, but I think that I enjoy helping people. I enjoy helping people. I've taken care of, they call me the fixer. I fix everything. I've helped a friend take care of her 4 children when she came from Israel. And I call on shut-ins. I go to nursing homes. I talk to people. And it makes me feel good. Columbus, Ohio knows me because I've been doing this for a long time. And it makes me feel if I can help somebody and take care of a person and make them feel better, then I feel better.
When you and I spoke in preparation for today's interview, there were 2 things you asked me to remind you to make sure we talked about. One was the suicide of a neighbor. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I never wrote about Ida. After the war, my mother went back to her apartment, and there was a young girl, like 17, 18 years old, and her name was Ida. And she lived at the end of the hall in her own apartment. Her parents were both taken, and she was living alone. So my mother would help her. She showed Ida how to sew, and she became very close to Ida. But my mother, none of us knew that Ida was still having a lot of problems. And one day, my sister and I were coming home, and my aunt, who lived down the street, my father's sister, she said, "You have to go see Ida. She's dead." I said, "What do you mean?" "She killed herself." My mother says, "My daughters do not have to go see Ida. They do not." She couldn't live. After her parents died, she could not live without her parents. So she put the gas on and killed herself. That was Ida.
The second thing you wanted me to remind you about was your first meeting with a Black person.
Well, I don't know, there's a man called Baptiste, and he lived right near, that time there was no toilet. There was a hole on the floor and you went up the door, but he lived next door and he was very dark, very dark. I thought he just didn't clean himself. I didn't know I saw a Black man. But Baptiste used to go all over Paris to pick up toys for us. And sometimes my mother was worried that he would pick up toys in garbage cans. So she would not let us play with him. But Tees would always come and try and help us. And he was a very sweet man. And after I left, I didn't realize that he was African American. No one ever told me.
Is there anything else that you wanted to share that we haven't talked about?
You know, all I can share is losing my husband was very hard. But I had him, we married 62 years and I knew him for 64 years. But losing my sister was really hard. She was there for me for everything. She saved my life. We were together all the time. I couldn't imagine living without my sister. And that was tough. Because now I feel with my past and my history, I feel alone in it. I do feel alone. It's only me. And I can't share it with anybody else. And that's what's hard.
What message do you have? Take your time. What message do you have for future viewers of this interview?
Well, you know, I keep hoping that what happened in the Holocaust will never happen again. I don't understand why they hate Jews. I don't understand. But you know what? We survived all these years. And we will survive. And thank God we have Israel. We'll always have a home in Israel. And that's how I feel, that my kids will always have a home in Israel if anything happens in this country.
Would you like to make a comment about what's been going on in Israel since October and what's been going on around the world with anti-Semitism?
It's so difficult because, you know, like I said, I was a realtor. I was a realtor in real estate, and there was a lot of time I heard comments about Jews. But I have to tell you that what happened in Israel was so difficult for me. For the first 2 days, I didn't come out of bed. The second day, I wouldn't leave my apartment. I felt trapped. I felt like this cannot happen to us again. It cannot happen. I mean, I just finally became a Jew. And I want to be proud that I'm a Jew. But the killing and that, it was just, you know, and I'm the kind of person that watches the news. And after a while, my children says, Mom, don't watch the news anymore. It's really too difficult for you. It is. And I just don't understand what is going on. But I'm hoping that things will get calm. I put the TV on to see if there's some good news, and there hasn't been any good news. So it's difficult, very difficult. Our synagogue in Columbus, Ohio, is selling pepper spray for people who want to buy pepper spray. And the lady that sat next to me in synagogue, she said she was really afraid to go to shul this morning. She was afraid to go. That's terrible. I don't want to live like that, and I won't.
Thank you for speaking with us today.
You're welcome.
Fran, who is with you now?
This is my daughter, Carrie Lynn Ramsey. She was Carrie Lynn Greenberg. Now she's Carrie Lynn Ramsey. And she has 3 wonderful, wonderful children. And she's a very, very special daughter. I'm thank God I have her. She's been to my side. Anything I need, she's there for me. And she's very, very special. Thank God I have her.
Did you want to say a few words to Mom?
Just that I am so grateful for her. Being adopted, being hand-chosen to be somebody's daughter was a big deal for me in my life. And watching her and learning about what she's been through in her life gives me a lot of gratitude that I was lucky enough to have the life that maybe she couldn't when she was at that age. And she's been there for me, my kids, my son when he kind of was messed up. She and Dad stepped in because they know how hard the struggle is when you don't have family to be there for you. And so I'm so grateful for my mom and for my dad when he was here, and my Auntie Glorious, who is absolutely amazing in taking care of her little sister. I'm just blessed that I have this family that I have, because I don't know where I could have ended up if they hadn't adopted me. And good, bad, or ugly, we're family. That's all I got.
Tell us, who are these people?
The picture I just showed you, that's Fanny Silberstein and Giselle Silberstein. I must have been 1 and my sister was 2 years old. And this is before the war. My mother made all our clothes and we look so healthy.
Can you tell us when or where it was taken?
It was taken in Paris. My father was still living. My father, I remember only that he would put me on his shoulders, but that's a picture that my mom, it's a professional. She took me to a photographer. That's a professional picture. Before the war.
So if you were born in 37, if you were born in 37, when would this picture be taken approximately?
Probably 38, 39, yeah.
Thank you. And can you tell us, who are these people?
Those are my parents, Jean and Simon Silberstein.
And do you know when and where the photo was taken?
In Paris, France.
And approximately what year?
That I do not know.
Okay, thank you. Please tell us about this picture.
Well, this is a picture when, after the war, my mother was able to take us to the park, and someone took our picture. And this is how I have this picture. But it was after that my mother became sick. And that's the last picture I really have of my mother.
And can you give us the first and last names of everybody?
It's Giselle Silberstein, Fanny Silberstein, and Jeanne Silberstein.
And do you know when and where it was taken?
It was taken in a park in Paris, France, and I would say it probably was taken in 1947. No, 1946. I'm sorry, 1946. 1946.
And which one are you, right to left?
I'm the shorter one.
Okay, thank you. Please tell us about this picture.
Well, this picture, it was after the war. It's my sister Giselle and Fanny Silberstein. And it's a picture that I don't recall when we took it, but like I said, I'm very lucky I have these pictures. I do not know. I don't know how my mother was able to take these pictures, but she did.
Where was it taken?
In Paris, France.
And can you introduce which one are you?
I'm the short one.
Thank you. Who are these people?
My sister Giselle Silberstein, it's me, Fanny Silberstein, and Velvu, I believe his last name was Katz, Velvu, who came to Paris to find us and bring us some food after the war.
And do you know approximately when this was taken?
It was taken, my mother was still living, so it was taken before she got sick. My mother was still living then. I'm trying to think, probably 40, probably 1946.
And which one are you?
I am the little one. Let me see which one. I am probably the short one. The short one. The short one.
Thank you.
And that picture was taken at Rue Oberkampf, where we lived, in front of a business on Rue Oberkampf. It was right in there. That's where it was taken.
what are we looking at here?
Ruhrberghof, it's a building. Like I said, I have an older one. I can't find it. This is the building where we used to live, and it's right there. You can see the opening, and there's like a cobblestone road inside, and that's where we lived. 154 Ruhrberghof in that building.
And in what city?
Paris, France.
And when was it taken?
That was taken, I would tell you, Maurice, probably, I would say 10 years ago.
Well after the war.
Yeah, my friend Maurice went to Paris and he took it, yeah.
Thank you. Please tell us about this picture.
This picture is when my sister and I came to Cannersburg, Pennsylvania, to my Uncle Sam and Sarah's wife, and the clothes I'm wearing were clothes that she had left over from her daughters years ago, and that's what we were wearing. And so someone took a picture of us in Cannersburg, Pennsylvania.
And can you give me the names of the people, and which one are you?
I am on the right. I'm on the right. My sister's on the
full name?
Fanny Silberstein and Giselle Silberstein.
And the approximate year the picture was taken?
I'm trying, 1948.
Thank you. Please tell us about this picture.
That picture was our first day at school in Cannersburg, Pennsylvania, and we were asked to go into the class and take a picture, and it was in the newspaper, 2 little French girls coming to Cannersburg, Pennsylvania in a school. And that's the school we were in. We went to that school for about a year.
Can you give me the first and last names?
Fanny Silberstein and Giselle Silberstein.
And approximately what year was this taken?
And the school was called Hawthorne. I don't know how to spell Hawthorne. This was in Cannersburg, Pennsylvania, and it was 1949.
Thank you. What are we looking at?
This is let me look at it again. It's the death certificate of my father, right?
No, this is the ship.
The ship. That's the ship. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the ship. That's the ship. The Sobieski. Polish ship, the Sobieski. We were on the ship for about 10 days.
And what is this?
This is a piece of document my sister and I have been looking for a long time. We would be sending pictures of my dad all over Germany, all over France to see if they could find him, because we had no idea what had happened to my father. I finally went to the Red Cross, and I have to look and see the date on that. I went to the Red Cross. It's been at least 15 years ago. I went to the Red Cross, and I wanted to know if they could help me find what happened to my father. And a very nice lady, her last name was White, I remember. She says, things are to the point now where we can maybe research that. It took 2 years. She called one day and she said, I found your father's death certificate. I dropped the phone. I couldn't believe it. My husband, Dan, he says, I'll go pick it up. And so he brought it to me, and it has so much information, unbelievable, so much information. And what he did for work, he went to Camp Drancy, all the dates, it's all there. It's all there. And there's another family there, and I'm not sure who they are. I think there must have been maybe I don't know, his parents or someone else is on there, but I didn't know. But what was very difficult for me is that when I read that they arrested him, and they took him to Camp Drancy. For Camp Drancy, they took him to Auschwitz. And it was only like within a few months, they put him to death. But all they said that the way it's written, they're like he had heart stopped. But what upset me that I didn't even see it before, not only that he was killed July 8th, 1942, but at 6:10, they even have the time. That really so hard for me. You know, when I think about my father, you know, I really didn't know him that well, going to Camp Drancy and being put on a train, knowing he was leaving his wife and 2 little girls, you know, must have been terrible.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Please tell us about this photo.
This photo was taken by some friends of mine, and I believe it was one of our anniversary parties. And they took a picture. They threw a big party for us. I don't remember what year, though, it was. But this was an anniversary party, and it's probably, I would say 20 to 30 years old. But it was wonderful. We were in Columbus, Ohio, and that's Daniel Greenberg and Fanny Greenberg. No, Francis Greenberg. I'm sorry. Francis Greenberg then.
Thank you.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
And who are these people?
The front row on the right is my grandson, Zachary. His father is Mark Greenberg. The other one is Neil Schwartz, my sister's son. The next one is Giselle, Gloria, Gloria Schwartz. And the next is my husband, Daniel Greenberg. And that's me next to my husband. And you can see my sister loved my husband. She's holding his hand. And the other one
Your name,
please? Danielle Greenberg and Francis Greenberg. And the other one is Ronald Schwartz. He's my husband, my sister's husband. Okay?
all right. Anything else you want to tell us about the picture?
And then the one above that is my son. It's kind of Mark Greenberg. Mark Greenberg. And all my sons are here. I have 3 sons in the picture. Excuse me. I have my nieces. Excuse me. One thing I can tell you is that my sister, this was for my 80th birthday party. A surprise party for my 80th birthday party in Newport Beach, California. We were all together, and it was an amazing week. And my son stood up and he said, "You understand? My mom and my aunt came 2 little girls alone. Now look what family they were able to get together. This whole family belongs to them."
Was that taken around 2017?
When I was 80. I'm 80. When I was 80.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to tell us about this photo?
Let me think. I'm sorry, it was 75. I was 75, not 80. Because my husband passed away when I was 80. Yeah, 75. The photo is just an amazing, amazing get-together of my whole family. It was a big party, and it was just an amazing, amazing week for my family and all of us and my children together.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today, and this now concludes the interview.